There are infinite things in this universe, infinite things that we can worship, chase, pursue, and admire. But there is only one God. There is only one true self. Now, when we think about materialism, of course, the mind always goes to the most obvious things, right? Whether that's living a luxurious life that's surrounded by money or nice cars, maybe a nice home. And while it's true that these things can be materialistic, materialism and attachment to things can also extend to even the most ordinary, to things that you probably would not associate with being materialistic. If I love my laptop, for example, and I'm always trying to get the newest and greatest laptop, uh, I don't see it as a means for me to do the most basic tasks, but rather I see it as a form of pleasure. I see it as a form of making sure that I'm always up to date and I have the newest and greatest things because that gives me joy for some reason. Then one can argue that that's also being materialistic. One can argue that that's also being attached to things, being attached to form. Now, things in and of themselves do not make us happy. The common thing, of course, is money, and money supposedly can buy everything. But as we know, money cannot buy us happiness. It cannot buy us fulfillment. It cannot buy us understanding what this life is ultimately for. And it certainly can buy us a deeper and more rewarding connection with God. It's no surprise that the people who are genuinely the most happy, the people who are the most fulfilled, the most at peace, are also the ones who generally have nothing. They either live in simple homes or they don't even live in what you and I would consider to be a home. Maybe four walls is enough. Maybe not even having walls is enough. Just having something above their heads to shelter them from the elements. They don't have countless possessions, only the things that they need, only the things that are essential for living their life. Now, I'm not arguing for all of us to donate and give everything away and to become ascetics, but I'm also suggesting that maybe we look at our lives today and see how much of an attachment we do have to things. Why do we still hold on to them? You know, this topic is perhaps a little bit more relevant right now than, say, at another point in my life because we're actually in the process of moving. And as is the case when you move to another house or you move to another region, it's always a good time to take stock of what you have. Things just naturally accumulate. You know, the house that I moved into 4 or 5 years ago seemed so big, but certainly today, it's hard to find room for anything. Now, did the house get too small or did we put too much? That's always the question. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but certainly what I've found over these past few weeks as we've been preparing for this transition is that there are definitely a lot of things that I don't need anymore, things that I've held on to, perhaps for sentimental reasons. For example, it's amazing to see, my parents keeping track of all of my report cards from elementary school to middle school. I even found a photograph, a class photograph during my time in kindergarten, going all the way back. Now, certainly that's, a very prized possession, but at the same time, it's also a moment to kind of let go, a moment to say, while it's nice to see who I was, at 5, 6, 7 years old, I also have to realize that who I truly am cannot be captured in a photograph. And if I have room for it, great. If I do not make myself attached to it, then great. I can certainly keep it. I can certainly take it to the next home. But I've just learned throughout this whole process to kind of let go, to wean, to sort of drop what's not necessary. We're entering fall now, and certainly if you look out, you'll see many trees lose their leaves. It's a pattern, it's a cycle of rebirth. And in order for those new leaves to grow in spring, they must let go of the dead leaves in fall. That's just the way life goes. And similarly, we must have a spiritual cleansing, a spiritual renewal, letting go of the things that we don't need, the things that we have accumulated, the things that we have attached ourselves to. It's Buddha that said attachment is the root of all suffering. It's attachment to things, attachment to ideas. It doesn't even have to be physical. If you're attached to the idea of success, attached to the idea of making it someday, becoming someone in this world, having people love you and admire you and follow you and subscribe to you, well, these are all just attachments. They may not exist in a physical form, but they are a thing at the end of the day. And certainly, in today's world where everything's becoming more digitized, everything's becoming more online, on the web, on the cloud, you can argue, well, hey, Najim, this thing technically doesn't exist and can't be in my hands, but it is a form of attachment. It is a thing, right? And so it's really important for us to take a step back and to see what it is that is going to make us truly happy. And of course, I think all of us will find that even after kind of doing this cleaning, this physical cleaning, kind of cleaning out the house, cleaning out the attention must then turn inward. Because similarly, our body is like a house. Our thoughts are like a house. The mind is a house. And it contains so many different thoughts, so many ideas, so many dreams and feelings and desires. Things that accumulate and actually take up more storage than, say, the things in our garage or in our backyard or in a storage space somewhere. This is the thing that you have to be focused on more, is how do I clean those things? How do I take stock of what's there? Things that I've just dragged on for years and years and that have gone unnoticed. They're just sitting and collecting dust in the corner of my mind, and they're not really doing anything good. This is something that I was always, I've always been curious about, what is the mind's potential to hold and retain information? Is there somewhat of a limit as to how much the mind can hold? Just like everything has a limit, right? Our phones have a limit. Our computers have a limit. Our homes have a limit. Does the mind have a limit as well? Does one need to erase sort of memory or data or information to then make room for new things, for new ideas? And I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. It is a bit philosophical. Um, and as you probably all know, I don't really like to engage much in philosophical debates on this channel, but it is something, I guess, to ponder on and to really think about. What is the information that is stored in my mind? And is it information that is serving me? Just like you would go about your phone and deleting pictures or videos or conversations that you no longer need, we need that similar process for ourselves. We need to really focus inward and analyze what are those things, what are those habits, those behaviors, those reactions that seem unconscious, and maybe they are. Maybe they've become habitualized. They happen so often that we think they're normal, but they're not. The true state of normalcy, the true state where we should all strive towards, is a state of calm, a state of peace, a state of silence. And all that the things of this world, going back to kind of the more materialistic and the more physical thing, all the things of this world, all the thoughts of this world, all the activities of this world, if we're not mindful, they can distract and pull us away from that silence. They can distract and pull us away from our core. You know, I sometimes when I think about when I look up towards the sky and I feel kind of this, speaking of moving, one of the things that really attracted me to the house that I'm living in right now is the backyard, and specifically how open the backyard is. It's one of the very few homes that, when I was searching for homes a few years back, it's one of the very few homes that really just made me feel limitless, infinite in a sense, because there was no barriers, there was no fences. You had kind of a clear view for miles and miles and miles. In fact, on some days you can actually see, a local mountain here that's 60 miles north. The visibility sometimes is that good. And of course, the big thing that really pops out is the sky and how open it is, and how it almost seems to kind of engulf you and make you feel small. Now, of course, you yourself are not small, right? The physical form is small, but our essence is like the sky. It is limitless, it is vast, it is all encompassing. And for some reason, more than anything else, that drew me to this home. And I felt a very sort of calm feeling, a feeling of being close to God, a feeling of being close to my true self. See if you can try that for yourself. Regardless of where you live, regardless of where you are, see if you can sit out. If it's nighttime, I always like sometimes to just, get a blanket if it's cold, maybe a light or a lamp or something, and just sit outside, see if you can notice the stars. There's something about stars, unfortunately nowadays, the way we spend our evenings is not by reading books for most of us, is not by connecting with God, is not by observing nature. It's usually scrolling through our phones, it's usually watching TV. And I'm certainly not saying that those things are bad, but if we can just do those in moderation, and if we can instead spend more time doing those activities, seeing how vast the world really is, seeing how vast we really are. We sort of just kind of have a tunnel vision and, see the world through a very small lens. And I think that in and of itself is one of the reasons why we often feel so disconnected. We feel like our life is independent from everything. We feel like we are on this tiny island, and this world or this life is this grand big game, and we're just a small cog in it. We don't realize that we are all of life. When you realize that you are all of life, that you are all of existence, that you are all of humanity, then there's no more room for personal problems anymore. There's no more worries. There's no more to-do lists. There's no more, I got to do this or I got to accomplish that. There's no fear of dying anymore or death. There's no feeling of being incomplete. Emotions and everything just naturally fade away because you simply surrender to that moment. You surrender to the entire process It's what I like to say, and what many, wise spiritual mystics and poets and gurus and whatnot like to say. It's when the drop realizes that it is the ocean. You are not that drop. You are the entire ocean. The drop will try to pursue things in order to validate itself, in order to boost up the image of the self, the false self, or the ego. But the ocean does not need any of that. The ocean does not need praise. It does not need momentary or fleeting satisfaction. It just needs that space, that openness, that ability to just melt into the moment and not let any thoughts get in the way, not let anything steal from the silence that is naturally inherent in every moment. Believe me, you can find silence and stillness anywhere, through anything, and with anyone. It's not always the case where you have to, be alone or be isolated. Certainly that helps, of course, and I'm not suggesting it won't, but there is kind of that vibration that is running underneath all the thoughts in our mind. There's a vibration or a current that's running, just like right now, there is sort of a vibration of the humming of my computer running in the background. I barely notice it, but it's there. It's constant. As long as my computer is on, there's that vibration and that hum. And similarly, life has that hum. Life has that vibration. I like to call it the essence of life, or you can say it's God. You can say it's an energy field. It's some form of a magnetic, electromagnetic force. Again, I'm kind of divulging into, delving into the philosophical and metaphysical elements, but there is that vibration. You can feel it. If you are still enough, you can feel it. You can feel it radiating through your whole body. You can feel it coursing through every single muscle and fiber of your being, as long as you are silent. So to put a bow on this conversation, materialism is not just the things that we might think are materialism, right? It's more than just shunning, the things that will distract us. It's about realizing that things in and of themselves are not the root of happiness. Things in and of themselves are merely forms, and we must return to a state of being formless. We must go back to that state that we were in before we were born. A state that has no form, a state that has no sense of space or time or dimension. This is things that are very hard to conceptualize, and that's why I say that reason has its limits. The mind is a wonderful instrument, but these are just things that you have to feel. You have to feel it in your core. And if you're too attached to things, or if you're too attached to the outcomes that things provide, then you miss the whole point of life. You miss the most valuable connection in life, which is with life itself, God Himself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe it gave you a different sense of the things in your life. Maybe you might be inspired to go do that cleaning that I suggested, or just to take a step back and to see how vast this expanse or this field is that is both surrounding you and also moving within you. However you approach it, I do encourage you to keep reflecting, keep journeying, keep going inward. Never let the distractions of the world, and believe me, I will say this to myself first because I know how often I get distracted, whether it's with the move, whether it's with work, whether it's with other daily life and responsibilities. I am in the same boat as all of you are. And so my message to all of us is to keep being grounded, keep staying connected, continue to feel that connection. It's okay to momentarily be pulled away as long as we know how to come back. as long as we don't lose our way entirely. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you take some time also to maybe check out some of the other videos as well. I've been thinking a lot about how I can maybe spruce up this channel and do something different. Not only just with the channel, but even more broadly, how can I deliver more spiritual content? It's been something that's been on my mind. And, unfortunately, just given some of the time constraints that I've been dealing with these past few months, it's a little bit harder to put into motion, but it is there. And I'm very much looking forward to getting that ball rolling, end of this year, early next year. But if you have any ideas, if you have any suggestions, I'm all ears. You know where to find me. And I will certainly do all my best possible to not only continue growing this channel and continue producing content through here, but also hopefully, God willing, through other forms as well that you all can enjoy and consume and use in your day-to-day life. But for now, thank you for watching. I wish you a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you next time.